Welcome to Rogue Mode 0 to 40 in Flight of Nova. We are at Rogue Mode Grade 27. I just need to get connected up to my controller. And we should be good to go. So we will continue at a ground base. Alright, this is a local missions area, if I remember correctly. But we did do a local mission, and we found that it was not very good. We can go to Alkin and deliver a multi-spec 90 for 4-bar mission. Station Gaba, pick up intercooler for 5-bar mission. Let's see where a freighter is. If there's a freighter at this base, maybe we'll take a freighter mission. No, there's not. So we'll go straight for this base 160. We got 2 hours, but it's a 4-bar mission. But being an expiration time, we should get a little more XP out of it. I don't know what that means. But it's 124 kilometers away from mission start. Fly out of this dust storm. Just try to get over there as quickly as possible. To the multi-spec 90 waiting for us on the pad. Miss. Launch site is 17 kilometers away. Alkin is 38 minutes out, so we'll go ahead and go to the launch site. Montaigne is right up ahead, though.
CF2 shuttle, base 157 ground. Good to see you. We have you on approach.
Looks like it might want me to go into that building. Oh no, it's a nice, appropriate exterior, no elevator pad with the spare shuttle right on it. Oh, that's a freighter, not a shuttle. Alright, so our latitude is 0.1, so we do need to fly very slightly south, so we're actually lined up perfectly. But unfortunately, there's going to be a waypoint. We're just going to have to fly at that, and we'll see if it lines us up a little bit south or not. I don't think it will. I think the waypoint will point us straight east. Alkin Station is altitude 188 or 185.3 station. So the launch window gives us to a 30 degrees waypoint. Right up ahead. This waypoint is having us go directly east, which is not necessarily desirable at this latitude. We would want to be doglegging a tiny bit. And there's Alkin there next to the sun. So this apoapsis burn, I'm going to go ahead and try to push just a tiny bit to the south. And I'm going to push my apoapsis up to 180 with the tiny dog leg on it. Alright, so we are now reaching apoapsis 185 now. When we get there, we will be delivering to the station, which means we will not have to re-enter as part of the mission. Looks like we have Gaba Station coming up right ahead. By the time we rendezvous, we may find it convenient to just kind of hang out at Alkin Station, maybe do some local Alkin Station missions, and then I didn't pay attention, but if that Gaba mission starts at Gaba Station, which I thought it did, then we can just transfer over to Gaba Station in order to complete that mission. Got some pistachios. Oh, there they are. And sure enough, we went too far, too much inclination to the south. So let's try to kill our inclination a little bit. Return back to 0 lat. In this last little leg of our trip, at least we won't be moving more southerly. You can see our inclination there beneath the periapsis. I actually don't know what all the other numbers mean, but they are useful. But because we have a 0 eccentricity space stations, and all of the stations are in circular orbits, you really only need to worry about your inclination, your apoapsis, and your periapsis, and your FPA. Your FPA and your velocity are your two primary concerns while you're trying to fly around. I forget what kind of velocity I want to be engaging my engines, but I'm going to go for about 200. Alright, engines on. Alright, we're a little tiny bit ahead of schedule, but that's actually perfect. We're going to be finding ourselves at a perfect rendezvous position. Alright, now we are now basically in a concentric orbit. Might be a word. Relatively circularized. And I'm really hoping that this is a docking port and not a docking pad. And if it's a docking pad, then my plan is to first dock to a docking port, just for the fun of it. And then I'm going to dock to the dock pad to complete the mission. This is an enormous space station. And it does indeed look like it's going to be an internal docking pad. But let's wait and see. Perfect.
Falcon Station, you are all set to dock.
Rotate to face my dock port right there to the docking station. Alright, 3,000. So we'll be hitting level 28. We're going to 40. Alright, so we have this GABA station. Let's see here. Yep, we gotta reach GABA station for this 5-bar mission. But we are gradually approaching. And it is still 3,000 kilometers away. So rather than fly 3,000 kilometers, I would rather wait for our lower orbit to catch up to the higher orbit. Here's a drifting cargo. So we can do this drifting cargo mission if we switch to a freighter. Now let me see. Normally I would want to save the drifting cargo mission, but there's a lot of missions to Alkin. And it's a 4-bar mission. So it'll get us some good XP. This mission is too easy.
TL-01, Vulcan Station. You are cleared to dock.
Oh yeah, that was worth 4,000. That might put us all the way to level 29. So then we'd only have 10 more levels to go to get all the way to 40. Here's a easy mission. Short range mission just around the station. Let's see how far away Gaba Station is. Still 3,000. Alright. Let's look for any bigger Falcon missions. None. Alright, so this one is just local. We'll just do this one. Just flying from one side of the station to the other.
Freighter TL01, Vulcan Station. You are go for docking.
Ay, ay, ay.
DL01 craft, Falcon Station. You are go for docking.
Ah, 200 points. Totally. Totally meh. Alright. Still 3,000 kilometers out. None of these missions are local missions. We'll do one more local mission. Drifting cargo. Little bit better return on that drifting cargo, it looks like. I got 13 minutes to get over to that drifting cargo. Easy. Nice 3-bar local mission. And I think after this, I'm gonna go ahead and change ships and make my way over to Gaba Station. Oh, 3-bar difficulty, but no points off of that. We'll just hold on to this. Oh, we'll just ignore that. Alright, we gotta go to Station Gaba. It's 2,600 kilometers away. That's not too bad. We need to change ships. We could change ships over there, which might be more fun. So that's what we'll do. We'll just change ships. Gaba is approaching us, and that means that it's ahead of us in orbit. Because we are at a lower altitude, and both orbits are perfectly circular. So we need just to come out this way, and then we're going to start racing up our orbital line. We need to traverse about 2,500 kilometers difference in distance between these two stations, but because of orbital mechanics, we're not going to be able to just go from one station to the next. We're going to have to chase the orbit. So because we got to chase the orbit, the easiest way to chase an orbit is to lose altitude and kind of scoop under it and then slow down and then fling out to it. But at only 2,500 kilometers, that's not terribly far away. But I'm still gonna go and burn down towards the planet a little bit for this one. So I'm gonna burn down at about 20 degrees. And then we'll be moving basically towards Gaba Station, but we'll catch up to the latitude more quickly. And I'll just burn my periapsis. Is ticking down slowly, 160. And I won't burn my periapsis down below 120. We're not going that far, so I'll burn my periapsis down to, I'll go for 120. And then we'll lose altitude down to just outside of the atmosphere. And then when I hit the brakes, we'll just kind of fling straight up at the station. All right. So you can see our apoapsis is outrageous at this point. We have escape velocity at this point. So we're going at 11.9 kilometers per second around the planet. And ideally, we won't have to burn our trajectory back towards the planet on this trip because it's not terribly long. So we might even just be able to ride that trajectory all the way down to the intersect of Gaba Station. But I don't want that to be what happens because it's kind of far that you have to fly for that. So we're only actually moving closer to Gaba Station at 5 kilometers per second, roughly. And at 2,000 kilometers separation, it's 500 seconds. So we're talking about a 10-15 minute flight under ideal conditions. what is our inclination here? Okay. I'm gonna do an inclination burn. 0 on my inclination. And actually give it just a gentle negative. Positive and negative inclination does not actually add up to north or south traveling. So we have a negative inclination at this point and we're traveling south, but then later in the orbit that same negative inclination will travel north. So we're gaining altitude, but Gaba station is actually 750 kilometers altitude. And now we're 1,500 kilometers out. So I'm kind of curious what'll happen if we just let ourselves fly out to that altitude. Try to intersect. Alright, our latitude is now 0, so I want to try to 0 my inclination. But I'll only got a few decimal points, so I'm just going to run this RCS for a little bit. Alright, our inclination is 0 and our latitude is 0, so we should be chasing right at it. So we're past the halfway point and we are still climbing. So we will be needing to correct as we get closer, I'm pretty sure, but we shouldn't need a significant burn to lower our FPA and fly back towards the planet. Just to rendezvous. Alright, we are coming in perfectly. So, it does look like the way that Gaba Station, we're going to miss their altitude. And so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to correct to try to line up because we're not that far away anymore. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to point my cursor here in the landing cam directly at Gaba Station. I'm going to burn until they are no longer moving sideways across my screen, moving up and down my screen in this case, but I'm going to burn until they're just sitting still, and that means that I'm flying directly at them. And I believe this should actually slow us down a little bit as well. Alright, this isn't going to be a perfect science, but we're pretty close. Okay, so now we're pretty close. So now at this point, we should pretty much get ready to kill our velocity and circularize into relatively, I don't know what word you would call it when your orbit is the same. I don't know if that's a concentric. It's not, but it's pretty close. But because a concentric would be inside, and it would be impossible. Parallel orbit. equal orbit, a rendezvous orbit. We're gonna go for the rendezvous all in one go, basically. So we have about 4.7 kilometers per second of difference in velocity. This is a pretty powerful vehicle, so I'm gonna wait till about, I could go about 180, I could go about 200. I think if I wait till 180, that'll be the most correct. But as you can see, Gaba Station is now moving a little bit, which means we need to correct a little bit. So I'm gonna go right here. Now we should be pretty close to flying directly at them. Use my indicator. Alright, but 100 meters per second is a very long trip even at this distance. So we're going to then fly directly at them because we are pretty close to a rendezvous at this point. And then we're going to find the nearest dock port. We're going to dock, and then we're going to switch ships to the ship that we need for the mission that we're going to try to accept. So I'll just burn up to about 1 kilometer per second approach. That'll put us there in under a minute.
Freighter TL01, Gaba Station. We read your beacon loud and clear.
This is another giant space station. Not all of them are that way, but this one is. Alright. We can really select any dock port that we want. We just gotta find one. Looks like there's one right over here. There's a dock port. There it is. Alright, so we'll just hit this dock port. And I'm sure they either have a shuttle or a KLM on this station. They probably have both. Let's rock, paper, scissors. Draw straws. There's 2 ships we could use for this mission. I like the shuttle. Alkin is approaching. We're gonna refuel. And we'll check our mission. Station, Gaba Station. Both of those are freighter missions anyway. But the intercooler are far. It's a nice 5-bar mission. 3 kilometers away to the dock port that we need to get to. Oh, jeez. Bug in the game. Unfortunately, the mission is taking us to a landing pad. Never my favorite. So what my plan is we're obviously going to have to re-enter the atmosphere. But I'm going to wait for the re-entry window at a dock port, which will give me one more chance to use a dock port before I go back to the planet. Unless it does not allow me to do that. Sometimes it doesn't allow you to leave the pad until the re-entry window. Alright, so we gotta reach the surface, but it's 7,000 kilometers away in the dark. And what that means is that I do indeed have time to find a dock port and wait there. So let's see if I can find a dock port. There's one over there. Is there one out here? I don't see one out here. Alright, we're gonna go this one down here. Dock port looks like 13. Or 18. Alright, so Gaba Station, 758 kilometers altitude. So last time I waited for about 4,500 kilometers distance to target for the re-entry window, and I think it went okay at a minus 15 FPA. And I think it went okay. It lined me up pretty close to where I wanted to be at the 55 kilometers altitude for the braking. So that's what we're going to try to do again this time. About 4,500 kilometers. So we're going to Ndira. Ndira. Yeah, that's almost exactly. So we're gonna excel until we're about 4,500 kilometers to target. Maybe 46, since we gotta undock and get lined up. You can see this yellow bar here, that's where we are, as we're swinging around the planet at 750 kilometers altitude. So one thing we could do is transfer down to this other station that's passing below us. Who is that? Becca? Hayden? Yeah, Alkin. We could have went down to Alkin and departed from Alkin at 188. And they would actually get us to there sooner. But, now that we have the 50x time skip, it doesn't actually save player time. But it would save in-game time to do it that way. Because they're actually getting quite a bit closer to the base than we are. Alright, so we're starting to get closer, so I'm going to slow down this time once we get down to about 6. Alright, so now we're going to get down, we'll go 46. 4,600 kilometers separation. Alright, now we need to just straight away get away from the station a little bit. And then we need to get lined up for our re-entry burn, which is going to be negative 90. And then we're going to burn until our FPA is negative 15, maybe negative 16, maybe a strong 15. So there goes the station. So we're burning. We're at negative 7 FPA, negative 8, negative 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So we're at negative 15 FPA, and now we do need to worry about a tiny dog leg. So we'll go ahead and worry about that dog leg. We'll just burn straight south. Just try to line ourselves. We're going to be right dropping down on top of that target. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cancel our FPA. So we're going to burn vertically, but not until we're down at the correct altitude. So we'll need to adjust that before we burn, because as we orbit, our orientation is going to change relative to the planet. But we'll just watch our altitude, and once we get down to about 120 kilometers altitude, that's when we're going to cancel our FPA down to about negative 5. Negative 5.5. And ideally, that'll put us right at 53 kilometers altitude, about 1,000 kilometers away from our destination. And then we'll coast on down through the planet for a nice, casual, unpowered re-entry. But we're really ballparking it. I'm just guessing at these numbers here. But because in Flight of Nova you have so much fuel, you can see I have so much fuel, we can really ballpark it and it's going to be okay. You can't go wrong. So we are losing altitude a lot faster than I expected. Perhaps my time is wrong, but we still have a little ways to go, and our FPA is gradually ticking down. And what's going on is we're coming in on the orbit, and our orbit is shallowing out. We're not flying so directly at the planet once we start getting to here. We are also accelerating from gravity. (350 kilometers altitude). Coming up on 300 kilometers altitude pretty soon. So the automatic in-game re-entry window is about right here from a 188 station. So at 2400 kilometers, that's when the time skip will automatically stop you and say, here's your re-entry window. But we're actually already on our flight, so it's okay that we're where we are now. Might be perfect. So coming up on 200 kilometers. So 180 is the station height for the basic low altitude station. The most ideal re-entry comes from the low altitude station. So at 200 kilometers, I'm going to go ahead and readjust my attitude and prepare for the burn. So now we're down at 190. So at 120, I think I'm going to try to burn at 120. When I'm about 90 kilometers altitude, I want to be at about negative 5.5. So now we're at 150 kilometers altitude. 140, 130, 120. Alright, so now I'm going to burn my FPA to about -5.5. And we're going to try to keep our attitude as vertical as possible. And that was really close to perfect. So this is about exactly where you end up on a bone stock standard 188 station default re-entry with all the settings at default. So I'll just try to keep my attitude as vertical as possible. So now we're gonna naturally air brake down to a 0 FPA. We're gonna try to stay as vertical as possible. The air is going to pull us down. And then once our FPA is at about 0, we're going to hope to be at about 53 kilometers altitude at about 1,000 kilometers out. So our FPA is at -1.5. And we're hitting a 0 FPA now. So now we're not gaining or losing altitude. We're at about 55.8 kilometers altitude, so we'll be losing altitude at a perfectly manageable rate and an acceptable rate. We'll add some trim so that we don't lose altitude too quickly. And when we get closer, we can power turn. We can turn hard, and we'll get an adequate amount of braking at this altitude as well. I'm actually gonna let myself drop a little bit because I'm at 56 and I would rather be at 53. And we are going fast. We could be a little deeper in the atmosphere right now, slowing down a little bit earlier, but it's a very conservative approach at this point. So we are perfectly within a manageable, safe re-entry trajectory. So we are going a little fast, but once we hit about 400 kilometers out, then I can start doing a hard turn maneuver to slow down extra. Alright, so here comes 400. I'll kill my trim at the time. So I'm going to kill my trim. I'm going to start pulling hard. I don't want to gain altitude. I just want to turn. And then I should start losing a lot more meters per second. Without overheating. So at about 100 kilometers, I want to be down around 3,000 meters per second, and I want to be ready to pull down into the atmosphere. Alright, so I'm getting some heat here. That's okay. Still got a lot of temperature that I still can have before I need to worry about it. So we are overshooting just a little bit. So we're going to go a little bit more aggressively. So this is going to get really hot, and actually at this, we could take damage at this point. So I would have wanted to be deeper at an earlier point. So I should have nosedived. To get down to that 53 with the negative FPA. So I probably should have waited to burn until about 110. That's what that really means. But it's okay. We're not that far ahead. We're only about 80 kilometers away from our target landing. dokie. So I think that will be all for episode 20 of Rogue Mode 0 to 40. And let's see, we might be 3/4 of the way there. Will we get to level 30? Oh, we just missed it. So, maybe in episode 21 we will reach level 30 in Rogue Mode 0 to 40. Thank you very much.